Have you ever found yourself staring at, say, a healthy snack and just wondering if its label might change next? Maybe, thinking if your daily coffee fix is actually doing more than just waking you up.
Right. Those everyday things we often take for granted.
Exactly. Well, welcome everyone to the Deep Dive. This is your shortcut to be fully well-informed. We sift through a whole stack of articles, research our own notes, and basically pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. We try to add a dash of surprising facts, maybe just enough humor to keep things interesting. Today, our deep dive is fueled by Consumers 360. That's a news commentary from July 19, 2025. And it pulls its insights from the Consumers.App website, which is honestly a fantastic aggregator for consumer trends. We're going to explore how our choices, what we eat, how we handle our money, even our social habits are being subtly reshaped. Reshaped by evolving regulations, some surprising science, and new financial models too.
That's right. And each piece of information we'll touch on today kind of reveals a hidden layer of how we consume, how we interact with the world around us. Our mission here is really to look beyond just the headlines and unpack what these developments truly mean for you. Help you understand what's most important in these sources we're looking at.
Okay, let's jump straight into our first big headline then. This one's from Health and Me on MSN.com. It reads, obsolete and unnecessary. FDA set to revoke 52 nutrition and labeling rules. Now, when I first read revoke rules, my gut reaction was, well, a bit of concern. What's the real story here? Is this making things easier for us or maybe less transparent?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because it does sound concerning, doesn't it? Revoking rules. But the real insight here, I think, isn't just about efficiency, though that's part of it. It's more about the FDA kind of playing catch up with the modern world. Their rationale for pulling these 52 regulations is basically to streamline food industry standards. They see them as, outdated, unnecessary given today's practices. It's part of this broader effort they have to update the regulatory framework, make it reflect current tech and, consumer needs.
Right. Okay. So less about hiding information maybe and more about the way it's shared evolving. Does this mean we might actually become more reliant on third-party tools like, say, the Consumers.App we're using today to get the full picture?
That's a really sharp point. Precisely. To really grasp why these 52 specific rules are on the chopping block, it helps to rewind a bit. Back to 1990, the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act, the NLEA. Back then, that law was, frankly, revolutionary. It forced companies to put nutrition labels on most foods, and it made sure claims like high fiber actually meant something specific, had to meet regulations.
Right, standardization.
Exactly. Now, fast forward to today, many of those original 52 rules likely dealt with the nuts and bolts, the how of presenting that info. And technology might have just made those specific rules obsolete. So the potential benefits. Well, a more efficient regulatory process for the FDA, maybe lower costs for manufacturers, perhaps more innovation in labeling itself.
Okay, but is there a tangible upside for me, the consumer, beyond just corporate efficiency? How can we be sure this isn't, a sneaky way to allow less transparency?
And that's the crucial caveat, isn't it? We absolutely need careful consideration to make sure essential nutritional info stays accessible. While the FDA argues this aligns with a global trend, simplifying labeling the shift could mean consumers become more reliant on digital tools for the details, rather than just relying solely on the physical label.
Yeah, I see.
Remember, the NutritionFacts label itself, only introduced in the U.S. in 1994, and it's evolved since then, requiring trans fats listing starting in 2006. That was a big change.
Right.
So the real question for you, the shopper, is how might this decision actually shape the choices you make at the grocery store? Will it truly empower you? Or will it maybe challenge your ability to make informed decisions by sort of shifting where you find that critical information?
That's definitely something to chew on as we walk down the aisles.
Yeah.
Speaking of things we consume daily, I bet a lot of you listening right now are actually enjoying a cup of coffee or maybe tea or something caffeinated.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where it gets really interesting. Next headline. What happens to your blood pressure when you drink caffeine? This one's from Very Well Health on MSN.com.
Oh, yeah. Very relevant. Given how deeply caffeine is woven into our global culture, it's huge. Nearly 10 million tons of coffee beans were consumed worldwide just back in 2020. So what happens? In the short term, caffeine can definitely cause a temporary spike in blood pressure. How? Well, it blocks something called adenosine. That's a natural chemical your body makes that usually helps relax blood vessels.
Okay.
When adenosine gets blocked, your body ramps up adrenaline production. That's what leads to that feeling of heightened alertness, maybe a faster heart rate. and, yeah, temporarily higher blood pressure.
That temporary spike is interesting. Does that mean even if you're, say, a heavy coffee drinker, every single cup is still putting some kind of stress on your system, even if it doesn't lead to long-term high blood pressure?
That's a great nuance to pick up on, yes. While it's true that habitual consumers often develop a tolerance, meaning for many, regular intake might not lead to significant long-term changes in blood pressure. That acute temporary spike, it can still happen with each dose. But, and this is important, individual responses vary wildly. Really varies person to person. For some people, even regular consumption will contribute to elevated blood pressure over time, which is why certain groups should be cautious. People with existing hypertension, pre-existing heart conditions, pregnant women as well. Right. The FDA does classify caffeine as generally recognized as safe, GRAS, but they have recommended limits up to 400 milligrams a day for most non-pregnant adults, and about half that, 200 milligrams a day, for pregnant or lactating women.
Yeah, digging into the sources for this, I saw some research mentioned about caffeine and something called respiratory alkalosis.
Yeah.
That sounds way more complicated than I ever associated with my morning brew.
It is, and it's actually a pretty surprising piece of recent research. It's fascinating. Studies are indicating that caffeine can induce this condition, a respiratory alkalosis. You can think of it as a subtle shift in your body's acid-base balance. And it can happen even at what seem like pretty normal subtoxic caffeine levels in the blood. What's really interesting is one case study observed this without the common symptom you might expect, which is tachypnea or rapid breathing. So it just highlights how caffeine's effects can be more widespread, maybe more subtle than just making you feel awake or jittery.
Yeah.
And for regular consumers, it's also worth remembering withdrawal if you suddenly stop. You might get symptoms like sleepiness, headaches are common, irritability, maybe decreased cognitive performance. It actually indicates a mild form of drug dependence. So given all that, how does your relationship with caffeine fit into your overall health picture? Knowing these maybe subtle impacts, does it raise questions about your daily intake?
It definitely gives you pause for thought. A fantastic challenge for listeners. Okay, now let's talk about something that could bring just incredible relief to so many people. This sounds really positive. Our next headline is Revolutionary Allergy Spray Approved in UK. That's from Euroweekly News. This sounds like potentially huge news for anyone dealing with severe allergies.
Oh, this is indeed a significant medical advancement. A really big deal. The approval of an adrenaline nasal spray. So, epinephrine in the UK offers a needle-free alternative to the injections for managing those severe allergic reactions like anaphylaxis.
Right, the EpiPen type injection.
Exactly. And this innovation could dramatically increase the willingness, for patients, for caregivers to administer that life-saving treatment promptly. It could help overcome that common hesitation, maybe even fear associated with using traditional injections.
So it's basically an EpiPen, but delivered as a nasal spray. How does it manage to deliver the medicine effectively without a needle? Is it as fast?
That's the core of it, yes. The nasal spray delivers the epinephrine rapidly, right through nasal absorption, into the bloodstream that way. So it's a less invasive option, but still effective. Recent studies, like there was a phase 3 trial for a spray called Neffy. They looked at pediatric patients, and they found all participants got symptom relief within a median time of about 16 minutes.
16 minutes, okay.
And significantly, no second doses were needed initially in that study group. So it really highlights the potential here in reducing those psychological barriers to using epinephrine, making it easier to just act fast in an emergency.
Are there any concerns about getting the right dosage compared to an injection? Or maybe different side effects?
Yeah, valid questions. The clinical trials have shown it to be effective and generally manageable in terms of side effects. What's been reported? Well, things like tremors, a little bit of a shake, and something called nasal mucosal erythema, which is basically just redness inside the nasal lining.
Okay.
These are actually pretty similar to what you might experience with injectable epinephrine, but maybe perceived as less severe because the delivery method itself is non-invasive. The key breakthrough, really, is that this offers a quick, non-invasive way to manage conditions like food allergies, which are often the trigger for anaphylaxis. And more broadly, it could expand access to emergency allergy treatment for people with needle phobia. Or maybe in situations where giving an injection is just impractical or difficult. It's really an evolution in patient-friendly drug delivery. Building on epinephrine, which, get this, was first isolated way back in 1901.
Wow. history there.
Yeah. So what's fascinating here isn't just the medical breakthrough itself, but that significant shift in accessibility. How might this innovation impact emergency preparedness for you, or perhaps someone you care about who has to manage severe allergies?
It absolutely changes the landscape for emergency preparedness, no doubt. Okay, let's shift gears now to a more psychological topic, one that touches on our social lives. This is from Psychology Today. Fitting in versus belonging, the hidden cost of social drinking. This one really makes you pause and consider your own social choices, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, yeah. This article, it highlights a really crucial distinction, I think, between fitting in, which often means you have to alter your behavior, maybe act a certain way just to be accepted by a group, which can be, frankly, exhausting, versus belonging, which means being accepted for who you genuinely are, and that enhances your self-worth. So when social drinking happens primarily as a way to just fit in, it can actually lead to negative feelings, even impact mental health.
And this ties into binge drinking too, right?
Yeah.
Which is a pretty major public health issue.
It does connect, yeah. Binge drinking, basically consuming large amounts of alcohol in a short period to get intoxicated. It's often a social activity. But it's a significant public health concern, especially prevalent among young adults. It leads to adverse effects on organs, potential psychiatric disorders, and of course, increased risks like accidents, injuries. There are even some intriguing studies using smartphone sensing, tracking people's locations and interactions. They showed how the social context, like who you're with, the size of the group, significantly influences drinking patterns, which could actually help develop better interventions beyond just relying on people self-reporting how much they drink.
That's clever. It's also interesting how social structures play into relapse for substance abuse. You'd almost think limiting social interaction might help someone trying to cut back or quit, but I saw in our sources that might not actually be the case.
Yeah, that was a surprising finding, wasn't it? While obviously relapse is tough to overcome, especially if you're in environments that encourage drinking, some simulations mentioned in the research suggest that even limiting social interactions doesn't significantly reduce relapse rates overall in drinking prevalence. It indicates that maybe changing social structures alone isn't enough to mitigate those high relapse rates. There's more going on. And there's also a clear link we see between alcohol consumption and socioeconomic disadvantages. Higher consumption often correlates with higher levels of deprivation, affecting things like employment and income, often hitting men harder in those aspects.
And the culture of drinking itself is just so deeply rooted globally, historically.
Oh, absolutely. Drinking culture has incredibly deep historical roots all over the world, often serving as a social lubricant, and it varies wildly by region, beer cultures, wine cultures.
Right.
This deep context makes understanding the why behind our drinking habits even more complex. And another crucial point the article raises is the risk for so-called high-functioning alcoholics. These are people who, they maintain jobs, relationships, they look successful on the outside, but they still face significant health risks, just like others struggling with alcohol dependence. And their perceived functionality often means they delay seeking treatment, which can lead to compounded health problems down the line. So if we connect all of this back to the bigger picture, it really makes you consider, doesn't it? Are your own social choices fostering true belonging? Or are they sometimes just about trying to fit in? It raises this important question about the subtle and sometimes not so subtle pressures we all face in our social lives.
That's a very powerful point for personal reflection, definitely. Okay, finally, let's switch gears one last time to a really relevant financial concern many of us encounter, especially when shopping online. The headline is, "Buy Now, Later Programs Will Soon Be Able to Tank Your Credit Score." That's from AOL. These programs, BNPL, they offer such tempting convenience, right? But what are the hidden costs we need to know about?
That's precisely the central issue, isn't it? Buy now, pay later, or BNPL. It's that short-term financing option. Lets you pay a bit upfront, the rest in installments, usually interest-free if you pay on time. Super convenient. But the true hidden cost isn't just the potential hit to your credit score if you miss a payment, although that's real. It's maybe the more insidious way it normalizes taking on debt, often without the traditional checks and balances you get with credit cards or loans. Especially for younger consumers, it seems. It kind of functions like a stealth credit line.
Stealth credit line, I like that.
And if payments are missed or delayed, those defaults might get reported to credit bureaus, which signals financial distress and, yes, can lower your credit score.
So it's not just a simple, benign payment alternative. It really is a form of credit, but often without the same robust consumer protections or maybe the explicit awareness of interest rates that you have with traditional credit?
Exactly. That's a huge regulatory concern. These BNPL services are often, less regulated than traditional credit providers, so consumers can defer payments, often without upfront interest, but they might be accumulating debt without fully grasping the implications. The ease of access is a big factor. It can lead to over-leveraging, getting into financial strain quite easily. And we see data suggesting younger consumers, maybe those in more economically deprived areas, are primary users. And sometimes they're even charging these BNPL installments onto high-interest credit cards, which really raises concerns about debt management and long-term financial burdens.
Wow, that's a dangerous cycle. I also heard something about BNPL integrating with digital currencies like crypto. Does that add another layer of complexity or privacy concerns?
It does, yes. Some BNPL platforms are exploring integration with blockchain for digital currency transactions, and that does raise privacy concerns. Because of the transparent nature of many blockchains, malicious actors might potentially infer someone's financial status from that on-chain data.
Oof.
Fortunately, there are solutions being developed, things like privacy-preserving payment schemes. One mentioned was ePass to try and address these issues. But the core insight here, I think, is that fundamental trade-off. BNPL offers immediate gratification for consumers, increased sales for merchants. Big benefits there. But it often lacks the same level of consumer protection, the same stringent credit checks as traditional systems. And that can lead to hidden financial risks, potentially higher debt accumulation without those established safeguards we're used to.
Right.
So the question for you, the listener, is how are you navigating these newer payment methods? Are you fully aware of their potential long-term implications for your creditworthiness, your overall financial health? It really raises an important question about managing personal finances in this constantly evolving digital landscape.
Wow. What an incredible journey we've taken today, really. From, the evolving labels on our food to the nuanced impacts of our daily coffee, the implications of new medical tech like that allergy spray, how we navigate our social lives and drinking, and finally, this changing landscape of online payments and credit. Our goal in this deep dive, as always, was really to equip you with insights, help you better understand and navigate your world. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive, and thank you truly for your curiosity. It's what keeps us going.
And maybe one final thought to leave you with, building on everything we've discussed. As technology continues to rapidly reshape consumer habits, regulations, everything, how will we, as informed individuals, ensure that convenience doesn't even overshadow awareness of our health, our finances, and ultimately our overall well-being? Something to ponder.